Somewhere along the way, we decided that talking about what women over 50 want in bed was either embarrassing or irrelevant. That was a mistake, because women in this age group are more in touch with their bodies, more clear about their desires, and more ready for genuinely satisfying intimacy than at any other point in their lives. The only missing piece? A partner who knows how to show up. Hi, I'm Dr. Ella Parker. I'm a certified men's sex therapist, and I've spent over a decade working with men and couples, navigating the deeply personal terrain of sexual health, intimacy, and connection. My work sits at the intersection of clinical research and real human experience. And what I've learned after thousands of hours in the consulting room is this: most of the problems couples face in the bedroom are not physical. They are informational. Nobody told them what changes. Nobody gave them the roadmap. That's what this channel is here to do. Today's conversation is one I believe every man over 60 needs to have. We're talking about the 5 things women over 50 consistently wish their partners would do in bed. These aren't guesses. They're not magazine fluff. They are clinically backed, research-informed insights drawn from what women in this age group actually report, in studies, in surveys, and yes, in my consulting room. If you're in a relationship with a woman over 50, or heading toward one, this video is your roadmap. Before we go any further, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. Every week on this channel, I break down the science and the real talk behind men's sexual health, relationships, and intimacy after 60. No embarrassment, no judgment, just information that can genuinely change your life. Subscribe, and make sure you don't miss a single video. Why everything changes after 50. For her. Before we get to the list, I want to take a few minutes to set the scene, because context matters enormously here. If you understand why things change for women after 50, everything that follows will land differently. It won't just be a checklist. It will make complete sense. Here's what's happening physiologically. When women move through menopause, typically between the ages of 45 and 55, their estrogen levels drop significantly. Estrogen is the hormone most closely associated with vaginal health, lubrication, and arousal response. When it declines, the tissue of the vaginal wall can become thinner and less elastic. Natural lubrication slows down. Arousal, which used to happen quickly, now takes longer. This is not a malfunction. This is biology. But it means that the approach that worked 20 years ago is simply not going to produce the same results today. At the same time, testosterone, yes, women have testosterone too, also declines with age. Testosterone influences libido, energy, and the intensity of sexual desire. So the picture is this: her body is still fully capable of arousal, pleasure, and deeply satisfying intimacy. But the pathway there has changed. Now here's the part that most people miss. Because while the physical landscape is shifting, something remarkable is happening psychologically. Research consistently shows that women over 50 report greater body confidence, stronger self-knowledge, and clearer communication about their needs than at any earlier life stage. The insecurities of youth, the self-consciousness, the performance anxiety, the need for external validation, those tend to diminish. What emerges is a woman who knows herself, who knows what feels good, who knows what she wants. The clinical irony is striking. Just as women arrive at the most self-aware, communicative, and confident period of their sexual lives, many of them find themselves with partners who haven't updated their approach since the 1990s. That's not a criticism, it's just a gap. And today, we're closing it. The 5 things. Thing 1. Slow down. Seriously, slow down. I want to start here because this is the single most consistently reported desire among women over 50 in the clinical literature, and the single most commonly missed opportunity by their male partners. Speed is the enemy of pleasure at this life stage. Full stop. Here's the physiology. Postmenopausal women typically require significantly more time to reach full arousal than they did at 30 or 40. The clitoris, which contains over 8,000 nerve endings and is the primary organ of female sexual pleasure, takes longer to become fully engorged. Natural lubrication, which signals readiness, develops more slowly. Research published in peer-reviewed journals on women's sexual function consistently shows that the arousal window for women over 50 can be 2 to 3 times longer than it was in younger years. What does that mean in practical terms? It means foreplay is no longer optional. It means the concept of foreplay as a brief warm-up before the real event is outdated, and frankly, it was never a great approach to begin with. At this life stage, the extended approach to intimacy is the experience. The slow build is not the prelude, it is the main event. Now, I want to be honest about something. Many men I work with hear this and feel a kind of pressure. Does this mean I'm doing something wrong? Does she not find me attractive? No, that's not what this means at all. What it means is that your body and her body are operating on slightly different timelines, and the men who understand this, who lean into it rather than fighting it, become extraordinarily attentive lovers. Think about it this way. You've spent decades building patience, emotional depth, and the ability to be present. Those are precisely the qualities that make a man capable of this kind of attentive, unhurried intimacy. This is one of the genuine advantages of age, if you choose to use it. What slowing down looks like practically, it means extended touch that isn't goal-oriented. It means taking time to explore her body without rushing toward a specific outcome. It means paying attention to her breathing, her responses, her body language, and adjusting accordingly. It means not watching the clock. It means being fully present with her rather than working toward a finish line. One of my clients, a man in his mid-60s, told me that when he finally committed to slowing down, his partner of 28 years told him it was the most intimate she had felt with him in years. Not the most athletic, not the most impressive, the most intimate. That distinction matters enormously. Slow down. It will change everything. Thing 2. Make her feel desired, not just available. This one is perhaps the most emotionally loaded point on this list, and the one with the deepest research backing. Here is something that women over 50 report with striking consistency. They do not want to feel like a convenient option. They want to feel like a chosen one. There is a profound difference between a partner who engages with intimacy because it's there and a partner who makes his partner feel genuinely, specifically, actively desired. A landmark survey by the AARP on sexuality in midlife and beyond found that feeling emotionally desired by their partner was one of the top 3 predictors of sexual satisfaction for women over 50. Not frequency, not technique, not physical performance, feeling desired. What does this look like in practice? It starts well before the bedroom. It starts with the small moments, a deliberate touch on the arm when you pass by, a moment of real eye contact, telling her, specifically, not generically, what you find beautiful about her. Not, you look nice, but something that shows you're actually paying attention. It's the difference between a checkbox and a genuine expression. Now, I want to acknowledge something that comes up frequently in my clinical work with men. Expressing desire verbally doesn't always come naturally. Many men were raised in a culture where emotional expression, especially of the tender variety, was discouraged or simply never modeled. If that's you, you're not broken. You just haven't been given the tools, and it's genuinely never too late to develop them. Here's a simple reframe that helps many of my clients. Think of expressing desire as a form of information sharing. You are not performing vulnerability. You are simply communicating something true, that you find her attractive, that you're glad she's there, that you want her specifically. Women in this age group are particularly attuned to the difference between genuine expression and performance. They've been around long enough to know the difference, so the instruction isn't to say more things. It's to mean what you say, and say what you mean. There's another dimension to this that often goes unspoken. Postmenopausal women frequently grapple with shifts in their own body image. Society has not been particularly kind to women who age visibly. Many women carry years of messages telling them that their attractiveness has an expiration date. When a man makes his partner feel genuinely, specifically desired, not as she was at 35, but as she is right now, that is an act of profound emotional generosity, and the intimacy that follows carries a completely different quality. Make her feel desired, not because it's a technique, because she is. Thing 3. Have the conversation she's been waiting for. Research from the journal Psychology and Aging found that women over 50 have greater sexual self-knowledge than at any earlier point in their lives. They know what they want. Many of them have never been asked. Let that land for a moment. The woman you're with, your partner, your wife, may have spent years, possibly decades, knowing exactly what would make intimacy more pleasurable for her. And she may have never said it out loud, not because she doesn't trust you, but because the door to that conversation was never clearly opened. In long-term relationships especially, there's an assumption that everything has been said, that both partners know what the other needs. That assumption is responsible for more quiet dissatisfaction than almost any other factor I encounter in my clinical practice. The AARP's Sexuality at Midlife and Beyond study found that couples over 50 who talk openly about sex report around 40% higher sexual satisfaction than those who don't. Not 5% higher, not 10% higher, 40%. That is a staggering gap, and it comes down entirely to whether two people are willing to have an honest conversation. So how do you open that conversation if it's never happened or hasn't happened in years? I'll give you a framework that works. First, choose the right moment. Not in bed, not immediately before or after intimacy. A neutral, relaxed setting, a quiet evening, a walk together is far more conducive to open conversation. The absence of pressure makes honesty easier. Second, lead with curiosity, not agenda. Instead of presenting your own needs or preferences first, ask about hers. I want to make sure I'm giving you what you actually want. Is there anything you've been wanting to try or that you'd enjoy more of? That framing, curious, generous, non-threatening, creates space for her to be honest. Third, receive without defensiveness. This is the critical piece. If she shares something that implies you could be doing something differently, your job is not to explain, justify, or feel hurt. Your job is to listen and to thank her for trusting you with that. If you respond with defensiveness, that door will close again, possibly permanently. Fourth, reciprocate. Share something about your own experience, not as a deflection, but as a genuine exchange. Intimacy in conversation mirrors intimacy in the bedroom. It requires both people to show up. Many men tell me they're afraid to have this conversation because they're scared of what they might hear. I understand that, but I promise you this. What you find on the other side of that conversation is almost always better than what you imagined you might find. Women are not waiting to deliver a verdict. They are waiting to be heard. There is a profound difference. Have the conversation. It is waiting for you. Thing 4. Expand your definition of sex. This is where I ask you to do something that may feel genuinely countercultural. Let go of the narrow, goal-oriented script for what sex is supposed to look like. In our culture, and particularly for men who grew up in the mid-20th century, sex has often been implicitly defined as a linear sequence of events with a specific physical outcome as the destination. Everything else, touching, kissing, oral intimacy, sensual massage, has been framed as preliminary, as less than, as the warm-up act. That framing is not only limiting. For couples over 50, it is actively counterproductive. Here's the clinical reality. Research on women's sexual satisfaction across age groups consistently shows that postmenopausal women place higher value on non-penetrative intimacy than younger women. Extended sensual touch, oral intimacy, manual stimulation, and simply the physical closeness of bodies together. These are not consolation prizes. For many women over 50, they are the primary experience of satisfying intimacy. Part of this is physiological. Penetrative sex can be physically uncomfortable for women experiencing vaginal dryness or reduced elasticity, particularly without adequate arousal time and lubrication. This doesn't mean penetration is off the table. It means it should never be assumed, rushed toward, or treated as the only valid form of intimacy. Part of it is also psychological. Women over 50 have often shed the sense of obligation that can characterize younger women's experience of sex. They're less likely to engage in intimacy to fulfill a perceived duty and more likely to participate in what actually feels good. If penetration doesn't consistently feel good without significant preparation and attention, they know that, and they may be quietly hoping their partner will broaden his understanding of what real intimacy looks like. Here's what expanding your definition looks like in practice. It means treating every form of physical intimacy as equally valid and equally meaningful. It means being genuinely present during oral intimacy, not rushing through it as a gateway, but engaging with it as an experience in its own right. It means understanding that an evening of extended touch and sensual exploration without any penetration whatsoever can be profoundly satisfying for both partners. It means asking what would feel good tonight, rather than assuming the same script applies every time. One of the most liberating things I tell couples in my practice is this: you don't have to earn anything. You don't have to arrive anywhere. The goal of intimacy is not an orgasm, Though orgasms are wonderful, the goal of intimacy is connection, pleasure, and the specific kind of closeness that only physical vulnerability with a trusted partner can create. That can happen in 1,000 different ways. Expand your definition. The territory is much richer than the map you've been using. Thing 5. Prioritize her pleasure without making it a performance. This final point is subtle, but it may be the most important thing I say in this entire video. So stay with me. Women over 50 want their pleasure to be genuinely prioritized. They want to feel that their experience in the bedroom matters to their partner, not as a metric of his performance, but as something he values for its own sake. There is a version of focusing on her pleasure that still centers the man's experience. The man who works very hard to give his partner pleasure because it makes him feel like a good lover. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something more generous than that. Let me explain the difference. A performance-oriented approach to her pleasure looks like this. A man focuses intently on producing a specific outcome for his partner, usually an orgasm, and measures the success of the experience by whether or not that outcome occurred. There's anxiety underneath this approach. There's a scoreboard, and women over 50 can feel that anxiety. They pick it up immediately, and paradoxically, it creates pressure on her. Pressure to produce the expected response, to validate his effort, to perform her own pleasure in a way that reassures him. A genuinely partner-centered approach looks different. It looks like checking in, not anxiously, not obsessively, but warmly. Does that feel good? What would feel better? It looks like paying attention to her body's actual responses rather than watching for a specific result. It looks like being comfortable with an experience that is pleasurable and connected, even if it doesn't end with a particular outcome. It looks like valuing the intimacy itself, not just the destination. Research on female sexual satisfaction consistently identifies what's called responsive desire as particularly relevant for women over 50. Unlike spontaneous desire, which arises without any particular trigger, responsive desire is arousal that emerges in response to intimacy that's already begun. Many women in this age group don't feel strong desire before intimacy starts, but when the context is safe, warm, unhurried, and genuinely attentive, desire grows within the experience itself. What this means for you, her not initiating doesn't mean she doesn't want intimacy. It may simply mean that her desire is of the responsive variety. It needs a warm, unhurried, low-pressure invitation to emerge. If your approach creates pressure or centers the achievement of a specific outcome, that responsive desire has a harder time surfacing. If your approach is warm, patient, and genuinely attentive to her comfort and pleasure, you create exactly the conditions in which it thrives. Remove the scoreboard. Prioritize her experience because you care about her experience, not because it reflects on you. That shift, subtle as it sounds, is one of the most transformative things a man can do in his intimate life. Bringing it all together. Let me bring this together for you, because I want you to leave this video not just informed, but genuinely equipped. We've covered 5 things today. Slowing down so that her body has the time it needs to fully awaken to intimacy. Making her feel desired specifically and genuinely as the woman she is right now. Having the conversation she's been waiting for, opening the door to honest communication about what she actually wants, expanding your definition of sex beyond the narrow, goal-oriented script most of us inherited, and prioritizing her pleasure without making it a performance, removing the scoreboard and replacing it with genuine attentiveness. These 5 things are not complicated. They don't require a particular level of physical fitness, stamina, or youth. In fact, they are things that men often become more capable of with age, not less. Patience, emotional presence, genuine attentiveness, the ability to slow down and be fully in a moment rather than racing toward an outcome. These are the qualities that great lovers in midlife and beyond are built from. I want to say something directly to every man watching this. The fact that you're here, that you clicked on this video and watched it to the end, already tells me something important about you. You care. You want to show up well for the person you're with. You're willing to learn. That willingness is not nothing. That willingness is, in fact, the foundation of everything I've described today. Sexual intimacy after 60 is not a diminished version of what it was at 30. For couples who approach it with awareness, communication, and genuine investment in each other's experience, it can be richer, more connected, and more satisfying than any earlier chapter. You are not past your best years as a lover. You may be just arriving at them. Use what you've learned today. Have the conversation. Slow down. Prioritize her. Expand the map. And show up fully, genuinely, attentively for the person who has chosen to be with you. If this video gave you something, a new perspective, a practical insight, a conversation you're now ready to have, please hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more men who need exactly this kind of information. If you have questions about anything we covered today, about your own situation, about how to navigate these conversations, leave them in the comments. I read them. I respond when I can, and your question might become the subject of a future video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the moment. This channel exists for one reason: to give men the information they deserve about their sexual health, their relationships, and their intimate lives, without embarrassment, without judgment, and without the cultural silence that has left too many men in the dark for too long. I'm Dr. Ella Parker. I'll see you in the next one.